keep striving till there's nothing left. 'Cause I'm holding to the promise that was spoken in my dreams. And I know these trials won't affect my destiny. He can do the exceedingly impossible. My God is strong, strong. Oh, He won't fail. Come on, if you believe that, can you lift your voice? Oh, He won't fail. I'll forever.
Very special guest on today that's releasing his brand new single entitled Make Sure. Rodney McFarland Jr. I promise you, this is going to be one interview that's going to be inspiring, enlightening, but also educational as well. It's going to uplift your spirits. If you're a new artist, you definitely want to pay attention and definitely want to take notes. Do me a favor, like, share, and comment. Let's go.
One of these mornings, it won't be very long. You're gonna look for me, and I'll be gone, yeah. I'm going to a place where there's nothing left to do but walk around heaven all day. Listen here, church. When I get to heaven, I'm gonna sing and shout. Nobody will be able to put me out. My mother, she'll be waiting, and my father too, will just walk around heaven all day. Oh, Lord above, please would you hear my prayer and walk, please walk right by my side. Hey, Lord, hold my hand when things for me get a little cloudy. I need you. I need you to be my God. Hey, every day will be Sunday. Sabbath will have no end. And listen, y'all, we're gonna do nothing but just sing and praise him. Then he'll say, well done. And my race will be won. And we'll just walk around. We'll just walk around. I said, we'll just walk around. Every day will be Sunday. I wanna see those walls of jasper. I wanna see the streets that are paved with gold. I heard Paul say that at the name of Jesus, every knee has got to bow. Yeah, I'm gonna walk around to see my Savior, to see my family, to see my mama, to see my daddy. Yeah, walk around. Wave your hand if you wanna go there someday. Yeah, I'm not gonna stop until I hear him say, "Servant, well done." Yeah, walk around. We'll just walk around. We'll just walk around. Whoa, we'll just walk around. Oh, yeah.
Grace and peace to all of our brothers and sisters out there, man. What a joy and privilege it is just to present my latest single release, Make Sure. This is a song that you must download. It's a song that you need to add to your playlist. I tell you, God is so wonderful to be able to share your gifts with the world, share your gifts with your peers. It's such a wonderful and joyous delight. You know, make sure is a phrase that we use all the time. Matter of fact, you say make sure every day. When people give instructions, they say make sure. When they're giving directives, they say make sure. Make sure is a phrase that we use all the time, and probably wouldn't know how many times we use it. But this song was a song that was created to kind of speak to the times that we are in. You know, postmodernity is something that people talk about all the time, and that's the era that has been tagged for this season of our lives. And postmodernity really means that all opinions matter, anything goes, there's a wide acceptance of every ideology, there's really no right or wrong or absolute truth. When you think about postmodernity, that's kind of what you're getting into. And so as a reminder, as a strong believer in Christ, listen, I just want to encourage you in these times to make sure that you live Christ. Jesus said in John 12:32, and if I be lifted up above the earth, I'll draw all men unto me. Paul says in Romans 1:16, be not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so listen, make sure that you live Christ. Make sure that you tell somebody about Jesus. Whether you got to do that through hip hop, whether you got to do that through preaching, whether you got to do that through dance, or you just do that through a conversation. Listen, make sure that you lift our Savior. I hope that this song will be a tremendous blessing to you. You can get it on all digital outlets. And listen, I want you to have it. Make sure you add it to your library. And know from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you to the highest.
I want to say thank you for being a special guest on AOS Inspires Music Podcast. This is actually the first AOS Inspires Music Podcast that I'm bringing to the world. And I want to say thank you for being my special guest. Promote your new single, Make Sure. Critical question. Tell us something about yourself that the viewers we don't know.
Well, first of all, let me say thank you, brother Antonio Scott, a brother beloved, one who is inspiring people all across the globe. We thank God
Bless
for
you.
you, man.
Thank you.
One of the things people may not know, that's something that I really hadn't thought about, in relation to, ministry, preaching, and singing. People have known me for both, but as far as really pushing out music in this way, this is new.
Yeah.
So I think that I am a new voice to the music industry, but people who are familiar with my preaching ministry have always connected my singing to the preaching. So something that they may not know is just this new lane to travel in as far as getting my music out. That's something people may not know that I really want to undertake.
Did you know, let's start with the preaching first. Did you know that you will always be a preacher, or that God had called you to preach?
Well, I always felt the urge that it was going to happen at some point. At the age of 12, my father took me to my first National Baptist Convention, and just to fall in love with preaching at a young age. I always knew it would happen. 4 years after being introduced to my first national convention, I heard the voice of God at the age of 16 to preach the gospel. And so it happened sooner than I thought. I always knew it would happen, just didn't know when.
So what was it a disconnect being in middle school, high school, knowing that, listen, God has a call over my life and it's not popular amongst my peers? How did you carry that call and still hold your integrity in the midst of your peers?
Well, I tell you this, man, interestingly how it happened, most of my friends that I went to school with from middle school to high school, they knew the life I was trying to live that was in opposition to being a believer. So most PKs, they're trying to run away from looking like a Christian, especially among their friends. So how it happened for me, man, that by the time I accepted my call to ministry, my friends, my peers knew that I was making a drastic change from running away from trying to live the life to living the life. And so I was embraced. I was never a nerd in school. I wasn't the most popular kid in school, but I was never bullied. I was never marginalized for trying to be different. People embraced the call on my life, and I finished my high school years still enjoying every part of it. Went to every party, every dance. Did all that I could do to be a kid. At the same time, my calling in ministry was embraced.
Now, transitioning, everybody loves a pastor that can sing, right? So let's talk about your journey with singing. Did you start off with R&B music, or was it just strictly I fell in love with singing because of gospel?
So I'll tell you this, man. I really had an interesting upbringing. My mother and father are both musicians. My mother and father are both musicians. And my mom is the one who has a more melodious voice. My father can hold a tune, so he's not tone deaf. He can sing. If he was answering these questions tonight, he would tell you that, boy, you got singing from me. However, my mama's side of the family has a lot of singers. My dad, again, he grew up around Christian background. Grandfather, preacher, grew up in church. Actually started as a musician at age 13. So I have a musical background from my parents. I don't play the piano or instrument myself, but the singing was somewhat innate, uh, inherited from them. However, uh, as I talk about this musical journey, I have to give credit to my oldest brother, my mom's first son, Montrell Harris. Man, my oldest brother, 34. And let me just insert this real quick, man. Back in 2009, something drastic happened to him that changed his life forever. He had a bipolar reaction. Got in trouble with the police. They didn't know it was a bipolar reaction. And by the time we could try to get him out of jail, he coded, probably under so much stress. He coded and went in the hospital. And man, we almost thought we lost him, man. But God brought him back as far as his memory. Mobility has changed a little bit. He now lives in a nursing home in Ruston, Louisiana. But prior to all of that happening to my oldest brother, he was my inspiration for music. He gave me my first chance to record, and so he was, doing the hip hop thing, underground artist, trying to do his own thing, produce his own music, produce his own beats. Matter of fact, we started off recording in the closet, and so as he was, doing his own mixtapes, I was singing hooks on his mixtapes as a teenager, and so this idea of recording music and getting your music out there, pushing your music, it really came from my brother, and he's still respected even now, man. The grace that's on his life is that he's content where he is, knowing that he's in a nursing home, not thinking about if he'll ever get out. It's just become home for him, and at the same time, he's still an inspiration to so many. But as relates to my musical journey, man, what I'm doing now, I give credit to my oldest brother.
I love it. I love it. So a lot of people growing up, they've had a gift, a talent to sing or to preach or to do something that God has graced over their life. Let me ask this question. Were you ever shy to sing? I've met some amazing singers in my time. And soon you ask them, hey, sing a song for us real fast. And they get shy. Was that ever your issue or ever your flaw growing up? Knowing that you can sing.
Hey, look, absolutely, man. Going back to my big brother, I remember when he would have his friends over, or even his lady friends over.
Yeah.
he would try to show off his little brother. He would call me in the room and say, "Hey, Rod, come on, sing for my friend, man. Come on, sing." And he would really have to pull on me because I would be shy to actually sing for his friends. But he would encourage me to the point where I would do it. Now, once I started discovering that I was going to be singing more, my father would put me up to sing before he would preach. And so this before I became, even accepted my call in the ministry. Between the ages of 12 and 13, I started singing a lot at my dad's church and youth choir. And when he would go off to preach, he would put me up to sing. And I remember one time in particular, you talk about being shy. I knew he was going to put me up. I knew he was going to ask me to sing before he preached. And so I would tip out the church, go hide in the car. And I remember on one occasion, man, people were looking for me. He was getting ready to preach, and I was nowhere to be found in the sanctuary. And he sent folk outside. "Where's my son? Go get him. Go get him." And Doc, I hid out until I heard him closing his sermon. Then I went back in. So, shyness is something that comes with it. I think that I learned to embrace the gift that God gave me because I knew that even if I was shy, it was blessing somebody else. And so I eventually learned to do it to be a blessing, and not really concerned about my feelings.
So what moment did you realize that the gift and the anointing that God has over my life, not just to preach but to sing, was being a blessing to other people? Like let's identify that, because I'm pretty sure there's so many people that's going to watch this podcast tonight, that's going to watch this, and that's going to say, listen, I know I have a gift, but how do I know that it's blessing people?
Yeah, boy, man, it's interesting, man. Like I said, both of my parents were musicians, and my mom had the privilege of playing for different churches. And so, depending on who we would go to church with, uh, at the age of, I was probably between 5 and 7, my mom would have me sing while people walk around for the offering, This Little Light of Mine. At that point, I didn't know nothing. I didn't know if people were enjoying what I was doing or not. But at the age of 12, I kind of had this Michael Jackson voice, man. That's how light my voice was. It was just like Michael Jackson. A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. I mean, it was real high pitched, man.
Wow.
And at the age 12, I think the first time I sang was for my dad's anniversary. So we're doing a family tribute. I decided I was going to sing I Won't Complain, which is still my #1 hit today by Reverend Dr. Paul Jones. And after I sang at that anniversary event, I started singing everywhere, man. And of course, my father has always been my greatest pusher. Really don't want to say promoter in the kingdom, but he's been my greatest promoter, getting me out there, putting me up before people. And so I think that his push kind of helped validate the call that was on my life. Because at the same time, there are some people who push their children knowing that their children don't possess that gift because they want their children to have that platform so bad. But my father wasn't one of those guys. If you couldn't do it, he wasn't gonna put you up to.
I love it.
So I think he knew what my life would be and how music at that time was blessing people, and so he pushed it, and encouraged me to use my gift. And man, I've never had anybody to say, "Hey, this is not your area," And so what my father has pushed, and has affirmed for me, I've also found confirmation in that the more I had to do it.
Now, the biggest thing that I have an issue with, before we jump into your single, talking about your single, Make Sure. The biggest thing I know in the African American community is that people don't like to listen to people unless they can see the results of the fruits of their labor or some results of what they're talking about. So it's a sad case and scenario in the African American community is that when we start talking about finances or we're talking about how blessed you can be, people don't want to give the listening ear until they see the results in your life. So before we get into your single, tell us about some opportunities and the doors that God has allowed you to walk into to get you to this place, so that the listeners won't think that, okay, he just popped up with a single on today and now he's pushing this song that God has placed in his heart.
Yeah, so man, to answer that, I'll say this, man, that I've been singing since a lad. As far as the exposure, it's still becoming, but the Lord has been super kind to me in the arenas that I've been introduced to, and so of course church, revivals. I've been afforded to use my singing ability. Started pastoring my first church in Texas. Then 5 years later, started pastoring here in New York. New York just gave me a broader platform, broader exposure. But yet, when you think about New York, you're surrounded by so many musical talents. You're surrounded by so many ministry gifts that you can just become a number. And so, with coming to New York, still being a part of the things I have always been a part of, as far as our national conventions. Right before I moved to New York to take this assignment, God blessed me to start singing at our National Baptist late night. And so I'm a part of the National Baptist late night staff. And if you don't know what late night is, it's preaching auxiliary in our National Baptist Convention. I don't know what the National Baptist Convention would be, especially for the millennial group, if we did not have late night preaching. And so it's
Yes.
where we showcase some of the best minds, some of the best expository preachers. And prior to that, you do have singing. And so being a part of the staff, I've been exposed to so many people just by singing devotion. And then I've transitioned to 4 years of singing for our Sunday school publishing board. Our
Wow.
National Baptist Convention, we have our own Sunday school publishing board. And so, of course, the Sunday school books that may be in people's churches right now, our Sunday school publishing board may publish those materials that they're studying from. Well, every year, educators come together and they have a conference in December in Nashville. And for the last 4 years, I've been privileged to sing the entire week at that conference. And so that's been some exposure. Here in New York, I've been blessed to sing on some platforms, some award ceremonies here locally. And then just last year, man, I was blessed to sing on 2 live recordings. Um, David Wright, that's the
Wow.
son, the late godfather of gospel, the late Timothy Wright. I sung on their live project. It's not out yet. And then James Hall, Worship and Praise. He had his live concert down in Washington, D.C. during Gospel Music Workshop last year. I had an opportunity to sing on live recording for him. That project is not out yet. And then I've had the opportunity to sing for some local producers here in the city. And one project is out. A guy by the name of Mark Reddick.
Yeah.
You Google my name right now on any of the digital platforms, you'll hear me featured on this song, Nevertheless. And so, doors are slowly opening for music, but I'm walking in this lane now, just trying to see what the Lord has for me in this lane. And, I'm enjoying it.
I love it. I love it. So as we transition into the meaning of the song, let me ask the question: do you write and produce your own songs?
Yeah, man. When you first start, now if you can afford somebody to write for you, that's great.
Yeah.
But when you are first starting, you're coming up with your ideas, and then you're
Yeah.
trying to present that over to somebody who's going to produce you. So the first 2 songs that I've been blessed to put out, I've written them, and I got others in waiting. But this song for sure is something that the Lord has inspired me to write. Absolutely.
I love it. So this song, and I listened to it. I couldn't stop playing it the other day. Make sure that God is lifted up. I love it. But why now? Why now during this pandemic? Why would you put out a song? Make sure that Christ is lifted up. Why now?
Well, I tell you what, man. Prior to coronavirus, understanding the times that we're in,
Yeah.
I think that most people acknowledge this era as the postmodern era. And so in the postmodern era, it could be defined or described in many ways, but really the way I define postmodern era is that any opinion matters, anything goes, all things are accepted. So when we think about where Christ fits, in this bubble of postmodernity, Christ is just another option, that people think about. You really don't have to be a part of Christ to be saved. You really don't have to be in church to really be pursuing God. And so, make sure is a phrase that everybody says. Probably every day, if you're giving directions to somebody, you're going to say, make sure.
Right.
And we say make sure so much that we don't even know we say the phrase make sure. Make sure you do this. Make sure you do that.
Right.
Hey, if you're gonna do this, make sure you do. So we say make sure so much that we don't even know we speak that phrase often every day. Make sure. And so in these times that we're in, You know, I wanted to make sure stick and stand out to the point that when we think about these postmodern times that we're in, even though we give respect to all persons who follow their own religious preferences, uh, for those of us who have been called into ministry, those of us who have been convicted by Christ to carry the gospel, it is important that we don't allow silence to be something we settle for out of respect for others. We got to make sure we are carriers of
Wow.
the gospel, whether it offends or it welcomes. You know, God did not call us to beat people over the head with the gospel, or to abuse people with the gospel, or even to overexert, the
Yes.
message of the gospel. But we need to make sure that the gospel that we present, proclaim, preach, speak about, sing about, becomes normal as breathing to us. That we are anointed not just in confined walls, but understanding that this assignment that we have on our lives, it takes the anointing to do it, even when we are in places that doesn't call for it. Salvation is urgent. It's an urgent
Yes.
thing, because you never know when somebody is going to come into contact with you and need to hear it. Now that we're in the midst of this pandemic, and knowing that thousands, over 100,000 just in America, 100,000, close to 130,000 at this point, have
Yeah.
have passed away with coronavirus. You want to make sure, again, there it is. That's that phrase. You
There we
want to
go.
make sure that your life is in the hands of the God that you're going to meet in eternity. Because whether you believe or not, you're going to meet the Creator. And whether you
Yes.
believe that should be given credit to some other God, you're going to meet the God that we all speak about from a biblical standpoint. And so you want to make sure that you know Christ. You want to make sure that you are saved. So if coronavirus happened to be, a part of your narrative, and you go over to the other side, that at least you go over to the other side redeemed, and not suffering from coronavirus, and then suffering eternally in a place that, according to post-modernity, folk don't believe in. So I'm
Absolutely.
just saying, make
Right.
sure.
That's it. So, what is the ultimate goal of your hit record? And I think it's absolutely phenomenal. What is your goal? Because and honestly, when I was listening to it, it can really appeal to the millennials, and also it can appeal to the baby bloomers, the older generation as well. Because the message, I love the message. But overall, what is the goal of the listener that you want them to grasp from listening to your record?
Up in these two verses. Jesus says in John 12:32, and if I be lifted up from the earth,
I'll
I'll
draw
draw
them.
all men unto me. Now, as he's speaking of his crucifixion, knowing that he's going to be lifted up above the earth, and because of what the cross does, um, so many are drawn to Christ through his sacrifice on the cross. That's one way of understanding that we still need to lift Christ, even though Christ is speaking on the scene of his crucifixion. Then Paul, Romans 1:16 says, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first and also the Greek." And so I can share other verses, but in using those two, lifting Christ and not being ashamed of the gospel, we have to present the gospel, man. And we do that in a loving way. We do that in a loyal way. We do that in a out of commitment for our love for humanity and our love for the call that's on our lives. And so the
Yep.
goal is to say, hey, make sure you live Christ. Don't be ashamed to do that. No matter where you are, no matter who you are, don't be ashamed to live Christ.
Love it. So, what is next for you with the single? I know that we're in the midst of a pandemic, so we have to be very creative in ministry, and of course, of getting this message out. Because I really believe that many people needs to hear this song. Make sure. I believe that it'll spark something in their hearts. But what is the next step for you with your new single?
Well, at this point, the pandemic has halted the future project that will be coming out. So when you have one song that's out in 2020, you just want to try to work that and push that. But I want to continue to inspire people through music, and I'm not looking for instant gratification. Of course, we're a microwavable generation. Hey, if this song boom and it hits, and we go to the next dimension as far as music ministry. That's great, but I think that I just want to continue to work on putting out music that people can appreciate. Number one, music that is intentional with a message. Number two. And music that provides healing and encouragement. I believe, man, music is one of the things that sparks the creativity of human passions. That when people hear music, it inspires them to believe in themselves to the point that they can do things they never thought that they would do. And so the next step is, just to continue to work on the remainder of the project and to try to push this song to get out there, which it'll be a tremendous amount of favor if God pushes this song, because one of the things that we know with being in this digital space is that probably 1,000+ songs hit a day. So what's going to make your song different from somebody else's song? And so I know that when God blesses you with the exposure and the right connections to push your song, it's possible, that things could go up for you. But at the same time,
Absolutely.
I want to make sure that I put out music that has, number one, made sense, and that is not something that I'm just doing it for the sake of hobby. Because you can start doing stuff for the sake of hobby, and your music just, it's meaningless. It's just your voice on record. So I want it to continue to be intentional with the message that we're trying to present to people, and something that provides healing and encouragement. So this is the single that we have. I do have other projects that I'm featured on that's going to be coming out. One that is already out, and I have my first single that we released in 2017, entitled "He's Sweet, I Know," and that's still out there as well. So, man, I just want to continue to do the work, try to be diligent, and see what happens.
Absolutely. I love it. We're almost out of time. I have two more questions for you. The first question is, how did you feel when this song was completed? You know how sometimes we hear our projects in our head.
Man,
It's a
just to
hit.
tell you, man, when this song was being developed, I have to give credit to my producer on this record, man, Jeff Hewart. Jeff kept challenging me to do more for the song. At first, especially once you guys hear it, it was just a hook. Make sure that Christ is lifted up.
Oh, wow.
And we had a little vamp in there at first. It wasn't a verse 1 and a verse 2, but I was able to go in to the studio, and once we had the background singers and they did that part, we still didn't have a verse, and so this song could develop over about 3 months of time, man, and now that we have the final product, I'm thankful that it took time to develop it, because you got a good producer, man, when he can challenge you in the midst of something that you think yourself you're satisfied with, but he says, I hear more, and so we put more on it, and then some things that we originally had.
Said he had to make sure.
Yeah, hey, we have to make sure. and so we take out. So I give credit to Jeff Hewer, man. Shout out to Jeff Hewer, just for the hard work that he did to push me to do more for this record. And once we got to the final product, um, got all the instrumentation done, which I give credit to him for that, for his network and every instrument that was laid down on the record, man. It just became something we never thought it would evolve to, man. But it turned out to be great. I'm satisfied with it, and this is just the radio hit. So once people hear the full song, it's gonna be like, whoa,
Wow.
whoa. And so,
I'm excited.
man, I am appreciative of the time it took. Didn't know it would take that much time, and I know all songs don't take that amount of time, but some songs do, in order for you to make sure.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. So tell us, as we leave, two things. Tell us how they can purchase or download a copy, and also how can they hear the song. And then last but not least, just leave us with some encouraging words to some other artists that are up and coming, that are saying the critical thing: I don't know where to start, but I know that God has birthed a song on the inside of me.
Yeah, so make sure it's available on all digital outlets. It's on all the main digital outlets. It's on YouTube as well. So whichever way you download music, all of the main platforms, it should be there. So type in my name, Pastor Rodney McFarland. If you type in "make sure," you're gonna find a ton of songs that has that same phrase in it. But type my name and you'll find me somewhere in the search. Um, and hope that it will be a blessing to you and something that you could share with all of your friends and families. One thing I really love about the song is that people know me for singing hymns. Man, that's a stickler.
And we're
And
definitely
so,
going to ask you to sing a hymn before we close out.
oh, absolutely, man. So I made sure that in that hymn, working with my producer Jeff, man, that we gave people a taste of what they are familiar with when it comes to me. So this particular song is sort of like a gospel vibe, a gospel groove, but at the same time, if grandma is listening, for those who have a nostalgia type of mindset when it comes to old school church and hymns, it's a segment in there for you. It's a segment in there for you. So the song is available again on all digital outlets. I would say to up and coming artists, look, man, um, you know, you've heard this phrase all of your life: step out on faith. And I think it's more people that is winging it. That's a phrase, winging it. As they go. I do think that you need to connect yourself with quality people, like-minded people, people who are more relational than just transactional. Because there are people who will take your money when you're trying to do something, and you won't have the relationship. One of the things I can say is that the producer that I have, that I'm blessed to work with, we were relational throughout the whole process. He understood my life, my vision, my heart, and then I had to trust him to do what I didn't know needed to be done. And so having somebody that you trust, when you're starting this musical journey, is paramount. But I would say just step out on faith and do it. And before you release, make sure that you have the best quality possible that you're going to present. Because one thing about it, once your music is out there in the digital space, it's out there. It's out there forever. It's just like a reputation. Once you put something out, this is what people know about you. It's out there. And so you don't want to put out, something that really does not represent excellence. Because again, even as you seek to work with others who who are already prominent in their place.
Yeah.
You know, I thank God for my producer. You know, but even as God promote him and open doors for him, and as God opened doors for me, you know, you want to be able to allow your reputation to speak for you. So when people go and search your music or search projects that you've been a part of, you want it to represent where you're trying to go and what you're trying to do. And so make sure that what you present, you know, is of the best quality possible. And that's even according to your budgetary standards, you know.
Yes.
There's a lot of things you could do even when you don't have the money, but just step out on faith and watch God make it possible for you as you believe in that thing.
Absolutely. Listen, I want to say thank you for being a special guest on the first segment ever, AOS Inspires Music Podcast. Listen, I need you to close us out with a hymn of your choice to bless all of the listeners.
Pastor Antonio Scott, man, my friend, my brother, let me thank you for this blessed interview. You know, earlier you asked me about shyness, and you know, you can't be trying to enter into the musical lane and operating in shyness. You know, but there are times when people ask you to sing, and then you don't even know what you want to sing. Sometimes that appears to be shyness, but I want to appreciate you, man. This has been a wonderful conversation, and just look forward to what God is going to do in your life and in your journey through these venues, man, that you have provided for so many people, man. So I'm delighted to be a part of your first musical podcast. All right. Let's see. I really love the Lord. I really love the Lord. You don't know what is done for me. Gave me the victory. I love him. Oh, I love him. Oh, I really love the Lord. You don't know what he's done for me. Gave me the victory. I love him. I love him. I really love the Lord. Bless you, man.